Voters in Virginia approved a redistricting amendment, but it's already been stopped. Hi, I'm Mark, and this is Marxisms. Like, subscribe, share, and I will see you in the comments. Why are we redistricting now? Redistricting battles have always existed, but in recent years, partisan tensions have escalated nationwide. Some states have moved aggressively after political shifts or in response to actions taken elsewhere. Yeah, that's a politically correct statement right there. Basically, Donald Trump pushed Texas to redistrict to pick up seats for Republicans for the midterms because he's afraid he's going to be impeached. That's what launched this whole districting thing. Um, Most of the Democratic states that are proposing these things, the Republicans are out there saying, oh, this is unconstitutional, this and that. These are temporary measures just to counter Donald Trump's attempt to steal the midterms. That's all this is. This referendum didn't happen in isolation. It reflects a broader national struggle over political boundaries and control. But this case is going to court. But the court focus here isn't political, it's procedural. Did Virginia follow its own rules? In Virginia, the dispute is specific. Challenges argue that requirements may not have been properly followed, whether due to session timing, ballot clarity, or public notice. Under state rules, a constitutional amendment must pass in two separate legislative sessions with the general election in between before going to voters. For the redistricting amendment that Virginia voters approved, it went through the full process, two legislative sessions with an intervening election, meeting the state's constitutional requirements. In steps Justice Jack Hurley Jr. Jack Hurley Jr. is a Virginia Circuit Court justice in Tazewell County. He previously ran for the Virginia House of Delegates as a Republican in 1999. That's the main documented partisan connection people point to. This does not automatically mean he's acting in a partisan way in this particular case, but it does explain why critics, especially Democrats, are calling the ruling politically motivated. However, he ruled the redistricting amendment was invalid due to procedural violations, including legislature use of special session not authorized for this type of amendment, and the amendment wasn't properly published 90 days in advance, which is required by Virginia law. And in Virginia, ballot measures are supposed to be finalized and published before voting begins. But in this case, early voting had already started and the process wasn't fully complete. They were still voting on stuff in the legislature, apparently, on this when voting had already started. So things could have changed. Ballot language like restore fairness was misleading. I don't know about that. Now, when it comes to the language on the ballot, they're concerned about the word fairness. They're bringing fairness, I guess, back to the election process. That could go either way, depending on the judge, I would say. But I would think the judge would lean towards that being a fact because, let's face it, that's exactly what happened here. Trump urged Texas to redistrict so that they could pick up seats, basically take the midterm in a semi-legal move. And so now they're challenging all these other states that are doing the same thing to counter that move. I don't think a judge should overturn the will of the voters over something as technical as whether this was fair or not. I think people that were voting for this and voted for this agree with that statement. And the people that voted against it obviously disagreed with the statement. That's why they voted against it, but they lost. But if any part of this process breaks down, it is just a technicality and could invalidate the entire amendment. So if something happens here, it could go that way. I do not think that the fairness language in there is going to do that personally. I could be wrong. One more thing to clear up here. Claims from figures like Donald Trump about mail-in ballots resurface often, but the evidence doesn't support them. Mail-in voting is a well-established and secure process. When a ballot arrives, it's logged. Election officials verify the voter's signature against records on file. Once validated, the ballot is separated from its envelope to preserve anonymity. Bipartisan teams oversee the process. The ballots are scanned and counted under observation. If you want to see more on that, I have a short and I have a long video on voting, and I have a short video that I just came out this morning on mail-in ballots. Multiple audits and court rulings have consistently found no credible evidence of widespread fraud. This is Marxism. Like, subscribe, and I will see you in the comments. Peace.